We are searching for our truth and meaning. The Fayetteville Unitarian Universalist Fellowship has been a diverse community of searchers for over a half-century. We want to tell you our history, how we have grown from a small group who believe that to question is the answer. Now we are a community of nearly 200 individuals. Let us show you our 50 years of searching, exploring, debating, and fellowship.
It was January 1951 when some 30 people of liberal religious views first met in Fayetteville's Mountain Inn to form a Unitarian congregation. Why did they feel the need to take this step? Ralph and Mary Barnhart were two of the founders of the fellowship. Mary still remembers, we needed to do it for the children.
Lisa was in second grade at the time.
My teacher, for no apparent reason, one day decided to take a poll. She wanted to know what religion her students were. She went on to 5 or 6 different religions, and by that point, everybody in the class had their hands up except for me. So the teacher looked at me and said, "Well, Lisa, what are you?" And by that time, of course, I was thinking, well, I'm nothing. I'm nothing. I can't answer this question. And so, not really knowing what else to say, I just uttered that. I said, I guess I'm nothing. And I just remember it being one of the most humiliating experiences of my life. And I made up my mind from that point on I wasn't going to be nothing from then on.
Something that happened with my second son, Bob, when he was 7 years old, and was going with his sister and his brothers to the university lab school we called Peabody. One afternoon, I was waiting for Bob outside of the school, and he was a while in getting there. And by the time he came, I said, you know, honey, how was it? What held you up? And he said, something different happened today. The practice teacher who was in charge at the end of the school day decided to excuse us in alphabetical order of the names of the churches we all belong to. And so the Baptists were excused, and I guess a Catholic kid and the Methodists and so on. And I was the last to be excused because I didn't belong to a church.
After I started going to public school, occasionally they'd have these big assemblies and call in some sort of preacher to talk. I wasn't comfortable going to those, so I would go to study hall, and there were just a few other people who did that also.
Yeah, it took courage to go there when you knew there weren't going to be many other kids doing that. But then when children like from the Unitarian Sunday School, like Stephen Storla, came, that made it easier.
Okay. In the 60s and early 70s, the little Quaker group only involved about 5 or 6 families, and they were not terribly large families, and they had kids. But they didn't have enough kids nor enough adults to spare from meeting to conduct anything in the way of a what the Quakers called a first day school, which is like a Sunday school kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so we farmed them out to the Unitarians. Ian said, our son said that some of his longest standing friends now were kids that he met in those Sunday schools.
For many of us, it is a long search.
I was a long time. Well, I see, I started out in the ministry with, as I say, such naive views. I had, for instance, I conceived a church as a body of people in search of the truth. And it took me a dozen years or so to discover that most churches exist for the purpose of concealing the truth from people, or from protecting people from the truth.
When we first organized, we met in the homes of our members. The home of David and Mary Margaret Durst, the home of Harold and Katie Hantz, Ralph and Mary Barnhart's home, Dorothy and Gurdon Nichols' home, the home of Delbert and Sylvia Swartz, the Ed Merriweather home. Then we met for several years at the old Student Union in the International Room on the mezzanine. The children's classes met in offices down the hall. It was a good space, but problems loomed.
Ralph Barnhart was the first president of the fellowship and dean of the law school when he wrote in 1962 of the need for a place of our own. At the present time, we are witnessing greater and greater restrictions of free discussion here on the campus. The climax came with the board's regulations just the other day that banned political discussion on the campus unless strictly supervised. There has been some question raised as to whether or not the Unitarian group itself should be allowed to continue to meet on the campus.
So we held our services in a dance hall on Dixon Street above the UARC Bowl. Then we went to the Methodist Student Center, and later to the Episcopal Student Center. Part of the solution to our problem came from one of our founders, Maud Blondeau Bourne. She donated several wooded lots on Cleveland Street near where she lived. She had brought the property for taxes. The group bought some adjacent property. Noted architect and member Fay Jones designed a building for the site with wood, stone, and glass, but the cost to build it was far more than we had, and there was no building fund. Another plan was designed by Warren Seagraves, the architect of the Roberta Fulbright Library. We built a place of our own and began holding services in our new building in the fall of 1964. We dedicated the Fellowship House in March 1965.
We dedicate this house to all who have dreamed majestically and wrought mightily, to all who have served their vision faithfully. We dedicate this house to the ministry of all people, to the laughter and song of little children, to the search and service of youth, to the wisdom and stability of adults. Here let no one be a stranger, nor any lack of friend, but let the love of all abound in greater service to humankind.
Since completion of the Fellowship House, the building has been used frequently by the Jewish community in Fayetteville for Friday services, religious holidays, and religious education. During the integration crisis in the 50s, while the world watched the turmoil in Little Rock, Unitarians in Fayetteville worked with other faith groups and organizations, such as the League of Women Voters, to handle the issue in a far different way.
We had a high school next door, but we couldn't attend. And the black kids in my community had to go to Fort Smith in Hot Springs. Bobby went to Hot Springs, you know. And I think Lewis Bryant went to Oklahoma. He had some people there. But we could not go to school in our door, in the next door. So we formed an organization on campus. It was mostly composed of professors and their wives. And we called it the Human Relations Council.
This Human Relations Committee grew out of our Fellowship Social Justice Committee. We released parenthood of it and let it become a community organization, and members joined from other churches, other faith groups, individuals throughout the community, and it was quite an active organization. It helped integrate the swimming pools, the city swimming pool, restaurants and motels throughout the city, and the movies and the in Fayetteville.
Since the founding of the fellowship, members have played a prominent part in civic matters. Many members have served on the city board and on the quorum court. Members and friends played active parts in juvenile justice, on legislative committees, constitutional conventions, and the Arkansas Advisory Committee to the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights. One of our founders, Sylvia Swartz, was the first woman to serve as mayor of Fayetteville. She developed leadership through the League of Women Voters.
I went to a National League of Women Voters meeting, and I don't know if you knew Esther Clark. Esther Clark's husband was a physician in town, and she was very active in the League, and she was national treasurer of the League of Women Voters. And Esther and I went to a meeting in Washington, and they had 4 women from Wellesley College, I think it was, and one of these people was Hillary, who is now Hillary Clinton. And we were very impressed with these 4 girls. You know, 52% of the population of the world is female. And in the United States, we have something like 2 women who are in the United States Senate. And I forget how many, I think in the teens, that are in the House of Representatives. And to me, that is not a just representation.
Our members express their beliefs about peace, about the death penalty, about fair employment, about tolerance and human dignity.
But I am drawn here tonight because my own personal values, my sense of justice and fairness, my deep belief that this resolution can be a good and positive and healthy and honorable thing for this city to do.
This congregation has been a consistent contributor to the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, which works through service and advocacy programs around the world and here in this community. We have a tradition of guest speakers and member-led services, inviting discussion and thought-provoking ideas.
I was confirmed, baptized and confirmed as an Episcopalian. You might say, I could feel reasonably comfortable saying an Episcopalian, Unitarian, Taoist, Buddhist, something like that. And that sounds, again, unacceptable in Western terms.
God and Satan sat quietly, sipping coffee, staring out the window, pondering the emptiness they were feeling. In the omnipotent, omniscient, eternal, infinite self they shared.
David Bumbaugh always said when he concluded a sermon that the sermon in the Unitarian Universalist Church is never the last word on any subject. That it was an invitation to comment, criticism, and further discussion. And we invite you to do that now if you so choose.
In 1980, we began the process to decide whether or not to call a minister. There were many discussions and differing opinions.
The opposition to calling a minister was twofold. Some people were afraid that we would get too much into the business of religion and become too organized. And then there were those who didn't like what they saw as a substantial philosophical difference in the way we had done things, because we would have to ask people to pledge and to pay a certain amount in order to be members. The other opposition was just basically financial. It was my view we really couldn't afford it.
As president of the fellowship, I was aware that we had just gone beyond what we could handle as lay volunteers. There was too much that needed to be done. There was too much that we just weren't able to handle. We needed the guidance and the services of a full-time, professional, trained Unitarian minister.
Our first minister was a Reverend Janet Newman. Reverend Chris Bailey served the congregation for 6 years, beginning in 1987. She personally edited all of our hymnals to make the language in the hymns gender neutral. On her retirement, the fellowship conferred the title of Minister Emerita upon Reverend Bailey. Reverend Suzanne Daughtery served as interim minister for a year, beginning in 1993. In 1994, Reverend Rhett Baird was called from Atlanta and became our settled minister.
We chose Rhett, but for some unknown reason, he chose us, and we became his chosen people.
Do you accept this invitation of the fellowship to be its settled minister?
I do, Tommy.
A few members who have joined recently explain why.
I would say more than anything else, the thing that led me to this fellowship is the openness, the belief system which allows each person to believe their own conscience and follow their own heart, and that keeps me here. I appreciate the fact that we don't have a doctrine preached, and yet I wanted to be a part of a fellowship, and it has met that need for me, and I've been very happy here.
Being a member of this fellowship is just part of my life journey. When I was about 8 or 9 years old, I asked my grandfather what was the meaning of life, and his answer was he didn't know, but he knew it was important to seek the answer. I'm still seeking the answer to the meaning of life, and the Unitarian Fellowship offers two things that you really need: nurturance of a spirit and an honest quest for the truth.
At the time I joined this fellowship, I was studying philosophy at the University of Arkansas, and I had become irritated by the old dichotomy between dogmatic atheism and dogmatic theism. I found that the Unitarian Church offered a nice third alternative, which is that God is a mystery.
Our religious education program emphasizes acceptance rather than indoctrination, encouraging children to think for themselves.
I think it's good being a universal Unitarian because not a lot of people get to do it. It means to me that I don't have to believe what everybody else believes, and I can actually believe what I want. And being a Unitarian is nice because, you get to believe in all different religions, and you get to do fun activities with believing in them. We can believe what you want to believe, and you get taught about things you can believe.
As teenagers, we're in an environment where it's important that we feel like we fit in, and we feel often like we need to conform to society and the patterns that have been set. And as Unitarian Universalists, we are allowed to feel comfortable with who we are. We're allowed to be unique and different and tolerant of things that other people wouldn't be tolerant of. And that's very important to feel that way.
The fellowship has a peace pole on its grounds. 4 different languages state its message: may peace prevail on earth.
A first principle of Unitarian Universalism is the essential dignity of all people. Through this principle, peace may prevail on earth.
The fellowship encourages members to form covenant groups based on their interests.
The purpose of the covenant groups is to help us build a deeper and wider community. One of the reasons why people join our fellowship is to have an opportunity to visit with people of like mind. Covenant groups give us an opportunity to gather in small groups and learn about each other in a deeper sense.
We are gentle, angry people.
We develop many other activities encouraging the creative spirits in our members as artists, writers, performers in music and theater. There are family events, canoe trips, and picnics, and programs celebrating nature and discoveries about human origins, purpose, and destiny.
Well, here we are, sitting near our galaxy's edge.
By 1995, our membership and attendance had grown to the point that we needed more space. Daryl Rantis designed an expanded space which was rededicated in April 1999.
Architects, committee chairs, board members, carpenters, benefactors, cheerleaders, ministers, educators, painters, and countless others joined hand to hand so that this place would be.
May these rafters hear the voice of the child, as surely as that of the orator.
We are each searching. Join with us and do your own search. Find your truth and meaning, and enjoy fellowship with other seekers. We meet every Sunday morning at 11 o'clock. We hope you will come to the Fayetteville Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, 901 West Cleveland. We invite you to join us there.